What's up, everybody? Hello and welcome to Not Your Average Meta, an MTG Commander channel dedicated to bringing you decks and commanders you wouldn't normally find in your average meta. This week's video is brought to you by our new channel sponsor, International MTG. If you're looking for competitive pricing on your favorite MTG cards, old and new, be sure to check out the International MTG store and TCG Player, link in the description of this video. This week on Not Your Average Meta, we're bringing you our last game of 2022, which is going to again feature Donald, one of our YouTube viewers who came down to the Hobby Horse to play with us. Speaking of, we would also like to shout out our second full-time channel sponsor for Season 3, The Hobby Horse. If you're ever in the Central Illinois area, be sure to stop in and check out the store as well as saying hi to Martin. This week's matchup features CJ returning playing his favorite Warhammer 40k commander, Marneus Calgar, Donald playing his 5-color cycling deck being led by Esika, God of the Tree, or more importantly, the Prismatic Bridge, Fog Rawback playing his mono-green powerhouse, Reki, the History of Kamigawa, and finally Justin back playing his good old Scarab God. Now the other fighters will step into the Thunderdome and see which deck will come out on top. Turn 1, CJ plays a tapped Arcane Sanctum. Donald plays a command tower, then casts a Noble Hierarch. Fog plays Miki Koro, Center of the Sea, and then casts the Ozolith. Justin plays a tapped Sunken Hollow. CJ plays a Sky Cloud Expanse, then casts an Arcane Signet, and then a Skull Clamp. Donald plays a Marsh Flats, paying to 1 life to crack it in order to go get a Shockland, while he shortcuts his turn, casting an Astral Drift. Fog plays a Forest for turn. Justin plays an island for turn to cast Night's Whisper. He then loses 2 life and draws 2 cards. CJ casts a Mind Stone and passes. Donald casts an Edge of Autumn, which has him going into his library to go get a basic land that he puts into play tapped, while he plays a Crozen Verge as his land for turn. Fog plays another Force for turn that taps out to cast his commander Reki. Justin plays a Drowned Catacombs for turn to cast a Master of Death. He then surveils 2 cards, keeping both of them on top of his library. CJ just draws and passes turn. Donald plays a Plains for turn to cast Nature's Lore in order to go get a Triumph from his library. He then casts a Shard Convergence in order to go get a land of each basic land type besides a forest from his library to put into his hand. Fog plays Mirren the Moaning Wall for turn to cast a Blackblade Forge, drawing a card. He then casts a Eula Queen Among Bears, which has him drawing another card. Justin plays a Castle Vantress for turn to cast a Diagraph Captain. CJ once again draws for turn and passes. Donald plays an island for turn to cast the Prismatic Bridge side of his commander. Fog plays another forest and casts Galanor, Call of Wirewood, which has him drawing a card. He then casts Malira, Selvala Outcast, drawing another card. Justin plays an island for turn that taps out to cast his commander, the Scarab God. CJ casts a Sanguinary Priest and passes. On CJ's instep, Donald cracks his Crozen Verge in order to go get another forest card and plains card to put into play tapped. On his upkeep, Donald's Bridge triggers and reveals cards from the top of his library until he hits an Archfiend of Ifnir and then draws for turn. He then casts a Bone Miser before he cycles the land, which has him exiling Malira till the end of turn, while he also puts -1/-1 counters on each of his opponent's creatures and draws a card. He then cycles another card, putting more -1/-1 counters on his opponent's creatures, sending most of them to the graveyard before he draws a card. Donald then cycles 2 more lands, which has him drawing a card each time, while he effectively wipes the board of all the remaining creatures. He then plain cycles a Timeless Dragon in order to go get a Plains from his library to put into play before drawing another card. This then takes out the Scarab God before he plays a Simic Growth Chamber for turn, bouncing a land back to his hand. Donald then creates a zombie token before he cycles another land, drawing a card. Malira then comes back into play and Fog plays a Nykthos for turn. He then plays Yorvo, Lord of Garenberg, before he then pays to equip him with a Blackblade. Justin plays an Ipnu Riverette for turn before casting Bantu's Last Reckoning, which then wipes the board of all the creatures in play. CJ draws and casts a Golden Throne before passing. Donald's Bridge triggers on his upkeep, which has him revealing an Eternal Dragon before he then draws for turn. He then plays a Selesnya Sanctuary for turn, bouncing land back to his hand before he then casts an Astral Slide. Fog plays Yavimaya Hollow for turn, then pays to recast his commander Reki again, before remembering that Ozolith should have had counters on it from Yorvo dying. He then casts Umezawa's Jitte, which has him drawing a card, before he then goes to combat, moving all the counters onto Reki. Justin's 3 lands don't untap on his turn, so he just draws and passes. CJ plays an Anointed Procession on his turn and passes. Donald's Bridge triggers on his upkeep, which has him revealing a Lord Windgrace before he then draws for turn. He then plays a Rakdos Carneum for turn, bouncing a land back to his hand. Donald then upticks Windgrace in order to discard a land and draw 2 cards. He then casts a Lightning Rift before going to combat, swinging his Dragon at Fog for the turn 5 First Blood damage. Fog plays another Forest, then casts Seaton, Corrosion Protector, and draws a card. He then plays a Shadow Spear, drawing another card. Fog then pays to activate Nykthos in order to equip Reki with his Black Blade along with his Shadow Spear before he goes to combat. He then decides to poke the bear by swinging Reki at Donald, who responds by cycling a land in order to exile Reki till the end of turn, while he also exiles his dragon and pays to shoot Seaton with his Lightning Rift. This then puts Seaton in the graveyard while he draws a card. Reki and Donald's dragon then return on his end step. Justin draws and recasts the Scarab God. CJ continues not to help out the rest of the table by cycling Ash Barrens in order to go get an island. This then allows Donald to shoot Reki with his Lightning Rift, sending him back to the command zone. On his upkeep, Donald's Bridge triggers, which has him revealing a Patron of the Moon before he draws return. He then upticks Windgrace in order to discard another land and draw 2 cards. Donald then casts Corso Crucifix, revealing the top card of his library. He then cycles another land, which has him drawing a card and revealing the top card of his library. Donald then casts Trade Routes and plays his land for turn, gaining a life before casting a Birds of Paradise. Fog plays another Force for turn, then casts an Aaliyah Keen-Eyed and then Yisan the Wanderer Bard, before he then goes to combat and moves all of his counters onto Yisan. Justin plays a tapped Castle Lochthwain for turn before casting a Lord of the Undead. CJ finally plays a 4th land for turn before he pays 5 in order to cast God Eternal Aketra. On his end step, Donald pays 1 life to go get a land from his library, which has him gaining his life back. On his upkeep, Donald's Bridge triggers, which has him revealing a Surly Badgersaur before he draws return. He then casts Bolus's Citadel before paying 3 life to cast a Vizier of Tumbling Sands, and then paying another 2 life to cast an Altar of Bone. He then goes to get a creature from his library to put to hand before revealing the top card of his library. He then plays his land for turn, gaining a life. Donald then pays a life to cast his Amulet of Vigor off the top of his library. He then explains to the table that he now has a setup in order to create infinite mana and make all of us draw our decks out using Kinrith, which in turn wins him the game.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so you can see more games and decks you wouldn't normally see in your average meta.